I'm Matt, and I'm here today with Bill, who's an amateur historian and tour guide here at Delapre Abbey, and we're going to be taking you through 900 years of rich heritage and the history of the Abbey.
How about then we head inside and you can start giving me the deep history of who came here before that battle then?
Absolutely, let's go.
And this is one of the original pieces from the building.
This is called a lantern holder, and it's one of two artifacts that we can date back to the times of the nunnery. This was a very necessary part of the cloisters here, the nuns moving from the south side to the church. This place would have been very, very dark, hence these items here. And we're very fortunate to have two of them here, all the way back to the nunnery.
It's amazing they've lived through everything that's happened here
Absolutely.
for so long.
Absolutely.
So do you want to take us away?
Okay, so let's go through into the North Range, which is the oldest part of Delapre Abbey. And when you look at it, Matt, you'll see images of what would have been a cloister. Let's go.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Matt. So this is the North Range cloister from medieval times. To the left here was the site of the chapel here in the nunnery. East-west orientation. The altar would have been at the far end of the corridor here, and the entrance to the chapel would have been in here. So quite a few interesting things took place in this corridor.
Very important area of the nunnery then.
Absolutely, and the oldest part of Delapre.
And as we continue going, do you want to tell us a bit more about this piece of...
Well, this it's meant to be a tapestry. It's certainly not original by any means, but it's our way of showing our visitors the land that the nuns looked after whilst they were here. They weren't particularly poor, the nuns. They had a lot of cloth and wool manufacturing going on across Northampton. We can see, for example, the Nuns' Mills of Northampton is a mill belonging to the nuns here. And this is really just a representation of the area that the nuns were, if you like, involved in.
So is there anything else you want to tell us about the people who would have, the nuns that would have occupied this space and the sort of their history through until they eventually get kicked out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the 400 years that the nuns were here, Matt, many things would have taken place in England at that time. But there are three events of national importance that had a profound effect on the nuns living here. Following the death of Queen Eleanor of Castile, she was the wife of Edward I Longshanks, and brought to an end a true romance of two people truly in love with each other. When she died in 1290, unexpectedly, the king arranged for her embalmed body to be brought in procession from Lincoln, where she died, to Westminster Abbey. That procession would stop at 12 different places, one of which was right here in the chapel of Delapre Abbey. Her body would have lain in state here overnight. The following day, the funeral procession would have carried on to London. And 3 years later, Edward would mark those 12 spots with a monument. And we all know the Queen Eleanor monument at the top of London Road, one of 12. There are only 3 left.
Absolutely amazing. And as we sort of continue over here, so you said there were 3 other moments of national importance.
Yeah.
So what would be the other 2?
The second one was a battle. A battle took place here on the grounds of the nunnery on the 4th of July, 1460.
Yeah.
Try and imagine the effect that would have had on the sedentary life of these nuns. They knew nothing of any politics going on at the time. So to wake up in the morning and find 15,000, 20,000 men ready to do battle would certainly have had a profound impact. At the end of that battle, the nuns for sure would have had to have picked up the remains, if you know what I mean.
A massive shock, I
Absolutely.
can imagine.
Absolutely.
And the final one, I'm guessing, of very importance would have been around the time of Henry VIII.
It is Henry VIII who would invoke the dissolution of the monasteries. And so in 1536, over 900 religious houses, including this one here, were dissolved or emptied or closed by Henry. The king's commissioners would arrive here and tell the abbess and her nuns that their time here is over. And so they will leave. the King's Commissioners will empty this building of all of its wealth to be sent to the King. And that's how the 400 years of the nun's life here would come to an end. We have a new chapter going forward.
So we've now moved into one of the kitchen areas, and this would, I guess, be one of the more important sections as we move into the next part of the story of Delapre Abbey.
Absolutely, Matt. The nuns have left, 1536. It is 10 years later before the king will sell what is left of the abbey or the nunnery to a private family dynasty. They are called the Tate family. As we go through the 7 generations of Tates to live here for 200 plus years, each of those family members will do something to this building to turn it into a family home. We're sitting here in the kitchen. This is the East Range, but we started our journey at the front of the West Range, so we've come all the way around. And so many stories to be told about the Tates until we get to Mary Tate. Mary Tate is the last living member of the Tate family, round about 1700, and she's married to Charles Hardy, Admiral Sir Charles Hardy.
So we've now moved out of the Tate period, and there's a very different architecture now.
Yeah.
So do you want to introduce me to these two people that seem to be dawdling the walls?
Yeah, of course. Well, as you say, we've moved out of the medieval period. This is 1764, the 18th century Georgian period. Now, I mentioned the Tate family line coming to an end. In fact, it was Charles Hardy who took on the final 10 years of the Tate line. But he would look to sell Delapre Abbey, and he sold it to this gentleman here. His name is Edward Bouverie. But anyway, Edward has seen this building up for sale for £22,000, £3.1 million today. In 1764, he's getting married to this young lady here. Her name is Harriet Faulkner. And so they will arrive here and begin a process of turning this home into very much a Georgian home. They would go on to have 8 children together. And the first one was this baby here. His name is Edward II. And I'll introduce you to Edward II in a second or two.
So now that we've moved into this next room, I'm guessing, is this the baby in the arms from the last photo now all grown up?
Yeah, this is Edward II. I introduced you to the first Edward to arrive here, and in 1764 he was married to his beautiful wife Harriet Faulkner. There's not much to say about Edward, Matt, other than he lived the life of a country gentleman here. He was the squire of Hardingstone, Delapre, and he would build model farms in the area, 2 model farms that I'm aware of. But more particularly, he would commission the building of the library.
So we've now moved in here to a room that I'm assuming is the library based on the amount of books. So do you want to just tell us more about this space?
This is indeed the library, commissioned by the second Edward that we've just met. Edward and his wife had 2 very important sons, important to the story. But we focus on the eldest son who inherited Delapre Abbey after Edward died. His name was Everard Bouverie. In fact, General Everard Bouverie of the Royal Horse Guards. He was a military man, and he served with Wellington at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Everard would seek to pass this building on to his son and heir. Unfortunately, Everard didn't have any sons or heirs, and so his nephew would take over Delapre Abbey. His name was John Augustus Shiel Bouverie.
It's incredible that such amazing history has been reunited here, especially with this sword, that otherwise may not have never sort of become one again. So it's amazing it's managed to essentially find its way home, isn't it?
In actual fact, you're absolutely right. How would we have known about this sword had we not have been advised during this auction last year? And yes, it's found its way home, Matt. You're absolutely right. Yep, very precious to us.
So I guess we should move out now to the next section of the tour then. So, and into the next room, and I must say again, the ceilings are very, very decorated. So do you want to tell me more about what this room would have been functioned as?
Absolutely, Matt. So we call this room the drawing room, or the withdrawing room, mainly because it's a room that would have been occupied by the ladies in the family and their friends. They would have had a meal next door in the dining room. The men would have departed to play billiards in the billiard room. The women would have come in here and sat around, perhaps playing the piano or telling stories to each other in front of a roaring log fire. So this was a very comfortable place to be. But here we can see in the corner his wife and his 5 daughters on the ceiling. So John Augustus is living a great life here. 1900, around that time, John Augustus passes away. That leaves the family here at Delapre Abbey. They'll decant to Hardingstone for a period of about 10 years. Around 1905 or something like that, this daughter here, her name is Mary Helen Bouverie, sees the opportunity to come back here to Delapre Abbey and live her life here for the remainder of her life. So Mary Helen will come back and she'll sell off her assets to pay off the debts that they had. She'll make this place her home, and she'll make quite an impact in local history here. She's a Justice of the Peace, she has an OBE, she's a great farmer, breeding cattle and cows and pigs. She opens up the estate here to the public. Her legacy lives on to this day. But in 1939, World War II begins, as you know. 1942, the War Office requisitioned Delapre Abbey, and Mary Helen has to move to Dustin for a short period because she's coming to the end of her life. 1942, she'll come back here and she will pass away here at Delapre Abbey, bringing to an end 500 years of family dynasties, the Tates and then the Bouveries. The building will then be sold to Northampton Corporation, Matt, and they are looking to demolish this place. In the 1950s, it was quite common to demolish big houses like this because nobody can afford to live in them. But thankfully, Joan Wake of Courtine Hall in Northamptonshire, she decides to bring the Northampton Record Office here to Delapre Abbey, and it will remain here for 30 years until about 1992. The building is then empty for a while, but in 2014, as a result of lottery funding and council funding, this building is completely restored over a 4-year period. And in 2018, this place is open to the public for the first time in 900 years.
Amazing.
And our story finishes.
That brings us to here now, where me and you are sitting in here talking about the history of Delapre Abbey.
We're here to enjoy what families and nuns did before us. You're right.
Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you very much, Bill, for your expertise and your time.
My pleasure. And thank you for coming, seeing us here at Delapre Abbey. It's been a pleasure showing you around.
Amazing. Thank you.